Welcome to the premiere of my video blog podcast. My name is Michael Charlie. I love conversations about our individual journeys for fulfillment, personal development, and authenticity. I explore and discuss opportunities for growth in our health, wellness, and personal relationships. I dig deep in exploring an individual's true potential. I have a background and thousands of hours in personal development, psychology, and counseling. In this, our premiere episode, I'm going to share some incredibly startling facts. And we're also going to explore why it is that men are so resistant to therapy. It's going to be an interesting conversation. Thanks for joining us. We'll get started shortly. Welcome back. So, statistics show that men rarely pursue counseling for personal struggles. Why is this? Here are some facts that influenced my decision to start this show on this particular topic. And I hope some of these statistics make your jaw drop a little bit. Men make up 93% of our inmate population in prisons. And they are exponentially more likely to be the ones who commit violent crimes in our society. Men are not only much more likely to use illicit drugs, but they have much higher overdose rates than women. They also have much higher drug-related deaths than women. Men commit suicide over 4 times more than women, yet men are diagnosed with depression or other precursors to suicide at less than half the rate as women. What does that singular statistic tell us about the potential out there of undiagnosed issues associated with men? Even with all these issues mentioned, men are about 70% less likely to go see a counselor, psychiatrist, therapist than would a woman. So if money was the premier motivator, it would seem logical that most therapists would follow the status quo and continue to pursue women as clientele, because that seems to be the individuals who actually pursue and engage and can value therapy. I take a different approach. One of my quests in this industry will be to research how and then to create the best ever men's counseling center ever created. Why would I do this? Well, number one, because these numbers and ratios that were just mentioned are insane. And number two, it's because we know therapy works. It changes lives. It is very effective when implemented, but it has to be implemented. So many issues out there, including personal development and mental health, have scientifically proven and very effective treatments, many of them that don't require any type of drug use. Treatments to heal and manage PTSD, trauma, generational dysfunction, and all types of interrelationships. Also to overcome anxiety, depression, addictions, and more. Think about the society that we live in now. Do any of you doubt that if men as a whole became more centered, more healthy, more self-confident, that we might see resolution as well to many of our societal ills? For example, the issues identified in the Me Too movement are not just boys being boys. They are issues that can be managed, discussed, and improved dramatically through therapy. While the social response is a demonization of individuals and a cancel culture, there is an alternative approach to deal with such issues without so much finger-pointing or punitive responses to people. Men are not healing from this current approach. They are becoming afraid and silent if they have any indications or concerns that they may have a tendency towards some of the behaviors identified. Being afraid will not help the men who struggle and will not stop the continual behaviors that will perpetuate into upcoming generations. When men start to heal and not just hide their struggles, so many issues become exponentially better. Management style in the workplace improves. There's more peace at home. There's a humble confidence within the individual that attracts success. If you know a therapist, you could even ask them, how many issues in today's society could be sourced from a behavior or attitude that kind of is focused more typically within men? You might be surprised or not surprised at the response. But we digress. First things first. If men don't even show up to therapy in the first place, why does it even matter? This is the elephant in the room, is that men pursue therapy at such exponentially lower numbers compared to their counterparts. Why is this? And more importantly, how do we change this paradigm? I did some research and I found some lists of justification that men use for resisting therapy, and I think I can break it down into two specific categories. First, as touched on previously, the pursuit of therapy can become attached to us like a label, and these labels can and have been used against us. This path also is interpreted that we are weak, we are broken, that there's something inherently wrong within us. We abhor being labeled in such a manner, and it takes a whole lot more effort to get our head around the idea that somehow confronting these labels or these potential issues within ourselves may have long-term value. There's so much at risk and potentially so much to lose in our minds if we expose that self to even a therapist in privacy. So shifting this paradigm requires an enormous shift in our thinking, an adjustment of thousands of years of training and biological wiring of how we see ourselves and how we express our role in society. And in our cancel culture world, the scenarios we create in our head are actually potential realities of how others may see us, demonize us, or push us out from society. So within this component, we find all kinds of additional issues. The cost, the value, the judgment of others. But truthfully, it all comes down to essentially one thing. That's fear. We don't know what we're going to go through if we expose ourselves in these ways. The second reason men don't go to therapy that often is this. And this isn't really men's fault. This is our fault within the therapy industry. Therapists have to do a much better job to make the environment appealing to men. Therapy offices and centers are not really designed for men. We have to absolutely recognize that the environments we create for creating safety and making appeal to men are hugely impactful, and we're not doing an amazing job at that. Are the centers designed to look and feel safe for men? So we ask ourselves a couple of questions. So where, and perhaps more interestingly, when do men feel more safe, to feel more comfortable? Where is the environment where they feel more inspired or promoted to feel like they can share authentically? Think outside the box a little bit on this one. Is it at a bar? Is it at a pool table? Is it outside? Is it out working in a field? Is it perhaps at a hunting lodge? What about after a physical game of flag football with friends? How does a man feel in that moment? Also, what about after making love to a beautiful woman? With all the release of the endorphins and the oxytocin, does that make a difference for the man's interest in being open and being more authentic and sharing components? There have been studies that have shown that men may feel more comfortable in environments that are a little bit out of the ordinary, the typical therapist office, with the comfy couch, the embroidered pillows, or maybe a motivational poster on the wall. But for men, if it's shown that we're not effective in bringing them in, then let's think what may be a better option. You know, these may sound like unscientific data that's just kind of thrown out there, but the truth is that if we see where we're at now and we follow the status quo all these years and we have such a small portion of men that are even willing to go to therapy, it's time to expand our ideas a little bit, brainstorm, and consider what alternatives may be more effective. You know, the aforementioned ratios that I shared at the beginning of this discussion, what if we could improve those by even 10%? What would that look like if we put forth the effort to draw men into therapy long term over the course of money spent and over the course of time, families, relationships, What would the difference look like? Well, let's talk about a few potential statistics. So imagine with me for a moment a transition in our society that suddenly or over time makes men's therapy much more widely socially acceptable. Imagine what this may look like for a moment. There may be required some significant groupthink and introspection to get our heads around what would be needed to make such a dramatic shift in our society. There is no doubt that therapy can be very effective in helping men, high-risk men, stay out of prison. NPR reported a while back on studies that showed that therapy had a huge impact on recidivism, or the chance likelihood that a man will go back to prison after coming out of incarceration. To discuss the value of therapy can have on society, we're going to kind of look at one component where there has been studies proving that therapy helps, and that's regarding specifically men who are already in prison. Every individual in prison costs our government around $31,000 a year. There are currently 2.3 million people in prison. So if we were going to improve the prison population and decrease it by 10%, that would be 230,000 people that we would try to remove from the prison system through behavioral therapy. 10% of the people kept out of prison would be 230,000. 230,000 people at $31,000 a pop is $7.13 billion spent on that 10% of people. So how about this idea? If we gave 230,000 high-risk individuals 3 sessions of therapy per month at $200 per session, over the course of a year that would cost $1.65 billion, a far cry from the $7.13 billion spent to keep them in jail. As an additional motivation for those attending therapy, we could also throw them an additional $100 per month after they've completed their 3 sessions. That additional expense would still only put us at $1.9 billion spent per year. A huge savings once again. Now, I'm not some economic genius that just came up with this idea. This idea has actually been done and proven in smaller scales and in smaller venues on multiple occasions, and it has proven successful. Not even to mention the added social value of the help and the benefit that men are receiving from attending therapy on a consistent basis. So here's today's takeaway. The need for therapy and for therapists to help men is unquestionably in demand. Men may have multiple reasons of why they don't pursue therapy, but none that cannot be overcome. A concerted effort to change the stereotypes, the fears, and the stigmas associated with men pursuing therapy can start now. The goal is to have impact that is measurable, repeatable, and scalable. It is the right move, and any economist would tell you upon doing the math that it makes complete financial sense. But we need the therapists and we need the public to step up and come aboard as well. Save this message, share it with friends, shoot some holes in it, have a conversation about it, and follow me, and let's see where this conversation goes. On future shows, I will have guests and answer your questions about men's health and relationships. Email me, michael@serveanother.com. Life is an abundant gift. The greatest gift we can give ourselves is to open ourselves up and allow ourselves to be seen. And the greatest gift we can give to another individual is to see them and embrace them as they truly are. I'm Michael Charlie.